Hello, good morning. So, this episode of Mud on a Monday will be a bit different. This time, I'll be talking about some tips and things I've learned in my rookie year in game dev. I'll go over some basic questions and let you know all my pitfalls. Welcome to Mud on a Monday. So, in this episode, there is no profile, there is nobody to look up to. We will just laugh together about the things that I've learned in year one. So, I love basketball. I specifically enjoy the development of those who are not at the top of their rookie class. This is usually when they're coming out of college, and in the NBA, it's very typical that the upper rookie class, with the first 14 picks called the lottery picks, are usually freshmen, at most sophomores. It's very rarely juniors or seniors in college. And so, what I like is it's always fun to watch, the lottery picks, your Kobe Bryant's, Michael Jordan's, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal's. But it's also really fun to look at players who seemingly came out of nowhere. Kawhi Leonard, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Most recently, players like Pascal Siakam, who have really shown that the NBA has gone global. So I'm fascinated by things like that. I'm fascinated by how these guys can seemingly be on nobody's radar and turn into big time players. And it never happens overnight. And it really doesn't happen out of the blue. And so a closer examination always reveals that their rise was slowly bubbling to the surface, simmering like any good soup. The work was put in, opportunities were capitalized on, obstacles were overcome, sacrifices were made, and the fear of failure was just fuel in the tank. So, with my own rookie year coming to a close in roughly about a month, I began thinking about, excuse me, about what I got done, what I didn't, how much my skills actually grew as a game developer, and what I hope to get in my second year. What am I building with? So, I started writing down all my thoughts, and it got longer than I thought. Reading it over, I decided, you know what? Maybe this info could benefit others, especially those who are just starting out their own game dev journey, or for those who feel that they're starting without the required skill set. We'll leave it at that. So maybe it can help to hear this from someone who started with literally like what I thought was no applicable skills. Okay, I didn't know how to code. I couldn't draw. The basic advice with drawing is to draw every day. And so, since I was young, since I didn't know how to draw, I was always frustrated with my attempts. I just never went further with it. So, for all of you who kept drawing out there, congratulations. Okay? It's not that easy. So, it takes time, and no one really sees all the time you've put into your artwork, but people who can't draw definitely see it. So, a year in, you also probably want to, am I using the right game engine? Does that even matter? So now, a year into the whole thing, I'm just a proud student of the game, of the process, of using games as a medium to tell stories. This is being made for the rookie game developer in mind, not for the exception, but for the common rook, like me. While I wish you the very best in being able to make a game soon in your development that is profitable enough to make this a career now, the more likely outcome will be that you will try to make many games. You will complete some games, and from there, well, anything can happen. It only takes one. It's a fun, unpredictable adventure of a grind, but a grind nonetheless. So I'm doing this as a two-part series. The second part will be recorded and released a few days after my year ends. So I downloaded Unity in January 2019. I didn't touch it because I was completely freaked out. It was insane just to download the thing. I felt like I had actually accomplished something. And so I left it there. I had this was at the end of January last year. I had a really rough February. I'm just really stressed out. And then in March, I went ahead and March 2nd, I had my first panic attack. Needless to say, I felt like I was dying, felt like that was it, and I figured this is how I'm going to spend my life. These are my memories. I haven't done much. I haven't done what I want to do. What what I feel like doing in my spare time. I would love to make games. So I took about a month, most of March, to just kind of settle back down from the panic attack because it freaked me out, frankly. But then I was cool. So at the end of March, I started messing around with Piskel tutorials and checking out Piskel tutorials because I thought art is gonna be the most important thing. The game development side of things, I'll figure it out. So I started in I think April. I started my first project. That's when I started my game development. How little did I know? It was insane. So a few truths. These will be important to come back to later. I want you to just keep them in mind. Number one, I make games. Therefore, I am a game developer. Two, I have not completed my first game. Not a single one. But I'm in the last 90%, as they say. The last 10% of a game is really the last 90%. Home stretch, right? So, number three, even if I never made a single doggone penny out of this, I would keep doing it. The fact that today you can make your own games from start to finish to distribution is enough compensation for me to keep doing it. It's like crack is free. That's what this is to someone who needs to tell those stories. I finally have a release for this, right? Crack is probably a horrible thing to use here, but it's incredibly addictive. It's incredibly addictive once you can tell stories in the form of games. To me, it beats writing. It just does. It's cool to combine them. I just really enjoy it. So I need some kind of creative outlet for the ideas I get. You might feel the same. So I have been able to shut that off for, I don't know, the first 32, 31 years of my life. So, and now I refuse to even try. I'm going to keep that light on. Going to nurture that. Okay? So, game development game development allows me to tell these stories in the way that I felt they were meant to be told as games. This is why I do this. These are my three truths. So, let's start. Which game engine should you use? There's only one correct answer. I don't care who you heard from what, it doesn't matter. Who you heard say this and it sounded great, I don't care. The research I have found, there is only one answer. There is only one. You'll find plenty of content out there looking to convince you of a particular game engine. It's a great way to expose yourself to see what might work for you. So while each is different in its own details, in its own methodology to carry out the process of creating a game, the fundamentals of game development are in all of them. And you can learn those fundamentals from any game engine. You have options. Free ones too. You don't need to spend a single dollar on this. Let it make you money first. Lord knows most of us are probably working hard enough. So you can choose the one that, I don't know how else to say it, but calls to you the loudest. Okay? or go with the one that has the highest amount of tutorials that get you going. Choose one and just run with it. That's the best game engine. The one that you feel the most comfortable with. The one that you feel is adding little electricity to keep that light bulb on. That's what you want. Don't ever let that light bulb go off. Don't let a game engine be the reason why it's on or off. So choose whichever one you feel most comfortable with and just hit the ground running. Yeah, crawling, whatever. Progress is important, right? Always moving forward. So I chose Unity. So this was simply because of the wealth of quality yet free tutorials that I found on YouTube. I started looking at them, and it seemed like a great way for me to kind of just like an orientation as to where things were in Unity menus, um, what the sprite render was, what a hierarchy window, the project window, your assets, and all of that. It was a great way for me to just kind of be like onboarded into my first year as a game developer. So now that you know what game engine you should use, number two is let's make your first game. So the best thing to do is just copy a tutorial. Just make a Unity tutorial game. Something really simple. So if you want to do like a platformer or a shoot 'em up, just make one level. Build the game out, and that means I didn't know what that meant when I started, so that means build it to PC. That means it's complete. So embrace using placeholder art for rapid prototyping of any game ideas. The quicker you can prototype it, the quicker you can find out if the game design's mechanics are fun and even worth continue to build upon. Okay? So the biggest focus that the biggest thing you should focus on in your game dev when you first start out is finishing a game. And in order to do that, that means the thing that is most paramount in in the entire creative process is one thing: scope, scope, scope. You can hear a lot of game developers use that word, and we're almost begging you to minimize and reduce your scope when you start. It's not a way of other game developers telling you, listen, you need to just minimize the scope and just do what I said. Okay, and then it is the only way that you will become a game developer. No, 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 no. But simply by reducing the scope, you get what you want, even though it doesn't seem like it when you're first starting out, which is you want a game under your belt. You want to be able to say, hey, I made a shitty little game that, I hope you guys download, and, I would love some feedback on it. It's your first game. You don't need to expect a lot. But finishing, oh, man, that's like winning gold right there, okay? It's gonna give you, from what I've seen, insane amounts of confidence. And I've seen it just in game developers that I follow on Twitter, that I interact with, that whose tutorials I watch, all of it. And you see that confidence grow. And being a fan of many game developers, it's insanely invigorating and inspiring to watch them jump like that, to watch that confidence grow and to then find that confidence be expressed in their work. And so that's how you get better. Just repetition, you know what I mean? You don't learn, for example, if you do weights, you don't just decide on a number and just magically, lift that weight. It takes time. And you really get it down when you can increase the repetitions. And that's all game dev is when you first start out. It's all about repetition. You want to get as much reps in as much as you can in game development. Okay? So it's among the most common issues, scope, for game developers, and you even see it happen at AAA studios. So just like shiny object syndrome, imposter syndrome, There is also scope. All of these things just plague developers, and honestly, it probably just plagues creative individuals in any medium. It's natural. It comes with the territory. So your first game should have like at most aim for like 15-20 minutes of gameplay. If you had, like the walkthrough and stuff, it could be completed in 15-20 minutes. This will ensure that you'll finish the game. Don't get caught up in adding all this variance and versatility. Save that for the next games. You will be making more games. Trust me. So, you want to avoid starting essentially a massive graveyard of unfinished games. It's very common. Hell, I think I have about 3 or 4 myself. It's a little grave, sure, but if I don't take care of that, it'll grow out of control. I'll have a zombified graveyard in no time of projects going nowhere. So, granted, sometimes a game just isn't worth finishing. So, that's something you'll have to decide for yourself. But it's a bad habit. So, you want to get into the habit, good habits, you want to get into the habit of finishing what you started. It'll be tremendous for your motivation to keep growing your skills and not stay comfortable, so to speak. It will help you get those ideas out of your head, kind of like Dumbledore pulls out a memory, like that, untainted, completely viewed the way that you saw it in your head. That's so key. Repetition helps give clarity to that kind of transmission from your brain to the actual game project. Okay? So let's say you're hell bent on making a 2D side scroller like the first Castlevania on NES. I'll tell you because I was gonna make a micro RPG and I have scope in mind because I'm making a micro RPG. That is in the graveyard. So let's say you want your Castlevania 2D side scroller game that you're making to last a third of it. So if you see on YouTube with the long plays, Castlevania on NES can be completed in 30 minutes or less. Okay? You can speed run it faster, but that's a whole nother thing. So 30 minutes or less. Okay, fine. So you want to do less stages, less bosses, less items to collect, and less enemy variations. All of that simplifies the game by reducing the scope, but you still have the complete game that you were seeking, right? That you want to make. So let's say you aren't willing to budge any more than that. Okay, well, let's go over step by step everything that's going to be required to make this little game. And I'm probably leaving something out. I'll be more than happy to read your thoughts on this whole episode, really. So, little being relative here, right? Let's go over what it'll take to make this little game. As a rookie game developer, even the smallest of games are going to provide sufficient challenges for you. It really doesn't seem like it, but it is. So, first thing, player controls and animation. Players got to know how to walk, jump, a melee attack, and some kind of ranged attack, right? Okay. Well, to make this the artwork a little quicker, use only keyframes on your animations, like many NES titles did, in order to minimize the amount of sprite frames needed, and also for memory purposes. Don't know anything about keyframes? Watch video game animations. The importance of keyframes literally was one of the first great pieces of game art advice that I came across because of how in depth the explanation of keyframes is and how to use it to make some awesomely dynamic poses in that NES style of pixel art. Next, basic features. A UI system that's easy to understand for the player. Nobody wants to be confused. Health system. You have to have collectible items to add for the health. It has to display conveniently for the player to not lose track of. You have to collect hearts to use for your special attack, like in Castlevania, a magic bar, if you will. Then you gotta, since it's a side scroller, you gotta do some simple parallax scrolling. Then you need some kind of pause menu, title screen, some kind of game over conditions, and a save functionality. Next, enemies. Two types of enemy, okay? A basic one and a boss of some kind. That enemy needs a health system. It needs attacks. It needs an AI that chases, patrols, or a combination of the two. The boss needs some kind of two phases. Next, level design. Avoid the level being longer than World 1-1 of Super Mario Brothers. It would be better if it was even shorter than this, okay? The goal here is to test out as many of your game's mechanics and refine them. That is what a good level 1 would do for you. And it'd be a good way to kind of show the player the mechanics of the game, okay? Next, game audio. You're gonna need sound effects. You're gonna need game music. Next, the actual game art. So in the beginning, you want to use placeholders to get the prototyping and build out the game's design to see how it all works together. Once it's all good, it's a great time to start the artwork. And you can kind of start at the whenever you want. There's some great advice to start the music at the same time you start the game to kind of give it that cohesion, right? Where the music, the art, the game itself, the essence of those mechanics all go together. They're all like in a nice harmony, right? So you you don't want those to spend so much time on the art. This is why placeholders I think are super important to use. Is just to use some placeholder art whenever so that you can avoid being held back in testing a game's mechanic because of not having the sprite to test with. That is horrible. You don't want that. Next, testing. So once you've added all of this to your game, it's time to play test the hell out of it and see if you have any friends brave enough to help you out here. Thank them and compensate them somehow. Pizza, coffee, a game, hell, um, ask them if they need a tester for their own game. This is where networking helps. As game developers, we can play test each other's games in a way that provides fresh feedback rather than just our own thoughts on our own game. Diversity, man. We all win with it. The more diverse the feedback on your game, you're going to learn so much. And, it's there's nothing like playing a game from another game developer and just having that leave you after going, "Huh, I feel like creating." Shout outs to Ancalabro and his name and his game code name Malo. Still so far the most addicting. That's a horrible word. The most fun to come back to game that indie game that I've played recently. It's so damn fun to play and it's really cool to be able to go ahead and interact with that game developer and really watch how that game has come to be. It's insanely fun and it's really cool to be able to play test someone else's, hard work. Literally, it's really damn cool. So I personally enjoy the play testing because it's a good way to kind of give each other feedback on our work before we get it out to market to the masses. It's great. It's like a focus group, you know. Honesty is key. You want to be honest. To Ancalabro, the fact that he just kicks our asses mercilessly is not cool, man. but seriously, it's really cool to be able to share that feedback. So now that you got your feedback on your little Castlevania replica, right? Now you're in the next part of the testing, right? People are testing it. So you want to, like, the goal here is simple once you're done. you want to do like a seek and destroy type of mission. Find every bug you can. Anything that you get told by anyone who plays it, write it down. Write down who said that, what they said, and think up, leave an area for some possible solutions. Now, why who said that? So you can track the feedback. That way you can say, okay, you can go back to this person. Hey, listen, are you still having this issue? It could be a hardware issue. You want to have that sorted out. So after you find every single bug and you fix them to a point where you can get the game to be functionally playable with some kind of fun factor. So at that point, you can go for building your game out to a single platform to minimize the variables of what can go wrong. So start with making it for PC only and find the bugs. Once you're all good, if you still want to, you can pursue building this to other mobile platforms, to Linux and just other platforms in general. Next, now you're done. Now you can release your game to every marketplace you can imagine and market, market, market. That's a lot of work for a tiny little Castlevania replica adventure. That's a lot of work. Unless you're very fast at making game art and game music, we have just exponentially, with every song we want to add, every new animation, we've added in literally unquantifiable for a rookie amount of time to this first game project, our first game. So that's why scope is so important, okay? Because at the end of the day, you want a game that you can finish. And for the crowd that says, yeah, but I can't finish a game that I'm not passionate and inspired for, I have nothing to say against that. The only thing I will say is you don't want to spend the rest of your life on a passion project and have it not see the light of day. So then you get too attached, and then you can become your own worst critic. You could be too harsh, and that can lead to all kinds of setbacks and drawbacks. So that's tips on making your first game. Just finish it. Just finish it. Make the scope as small as possible. I love the Game Dev Underground's tips. Finish the game, cut half of it up. Literally, just cut half out. Off. Out. Bye. Boom. Gone. And so that will help you finish the game. I have yet to finish the game, but being able to begin to see that finish line, damn, that is a good feeling. I can only imagine once I cross it. In all its amazing glory, I'll be bathing in all of the rookie accomplishment that is, putting on my merit badge and screaming it to the world. High five to me. But in the interim, we're here, jumping hurdle upon hurdle to get there. Get past it. Keep moving. Reduce the scope, and you'll get there. So, the next thing is when you're first starting out, it's so easy to just be like, oh, but I don't have a lot of time, to make a game. I don't have the money to make a game, the relevant skills, the right gear. We're going to talk about all that. You don't need none of it. You don't even need the right gear. Nah, you're not going to the moon here, man. You're making a game. Just about literally any computer of the last few years would be enough. It's insane how you don't need a lot to get started, and really what you really need to get started, what I needed was just to get the hell out of my own way. So number one, time. A fair amount of game developers are part-time game developers, and you have work, family, school, other commitments, a combination of those, and it leaves us a lot less time than we would like for our game development. Not that we would shut off some of those other commitments, but there's only 24 hours in the day. So try working for just 15 minutes a day for 30 days. Honestly, you'll get much further than you expected. Sometimes I don't touch my game for more than a few minutes, but it's enough. It's enough that when I come back to it, I'm not lost as to where I left off. So you'll find that you'll usually also exceed those 15-minute blocks. A couple seconds, couple minutes, maybe more, who knows. So after each session, I like to create a little devlog. Not, just you don't have to share it or anything, but just to kind of, I like to be able to keep track of my thoughts or where I was mentally and task wise at the last moment that I touched my game. So I like to write down what I did, any questions that I still have on what I'm trying to work on, and what I'm doing next. Why do this? That's what I'll put. Why do this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing? Oh, because I want this here. Okay. So this helps you remember your place, kind of like a thorough bookmark for your creative output. Life can pull us away randomly, and we may not know how soon we can get back to our game. So this really helps you pick up literally right where you left off. Don't just leave your ideas or thoughts to just your brain. There's already tons in there to remember. Give it some help. Paper and pen goes a long way. The a Any notes app on your phone, on your computer, anything, just write that down. The next one is a pretty interesting picture I came upon. So I found this on Twitter. It says that there's 168 hours in a week. Say 50 hours of it are at work. Let's say you go to the gym daily and for an hour, 7 hours a week gone to the gym. 56 hours for sleep, assuming you're getting 8 hours a night. You still have 55 hours left. Of those 55 hours, and for some even the 7 hours of gym time, will go to family and or school, similar commitments. And that's obviously okay. But in those potential 62 hours, there is certainly an hour and 45 minutes worth of your time you can give weekly to your game. That's 15 minutes a day. That's it. We have so much more time than we think. I was and still am a huge time waster. I am a masterful procrastinator. I'm talking world class. Okay? And you might feel the same way. So, this has helped me tremendously find time where I used to complain there was none. I would just sit, spaced out, looking like Peter Gibbons in the office. And then when you start seeing, oh, it's a couple minutes here, a couple minutes here, you begin to see there's a lot more time in the day than you thought. It helps drink, plenty of water, eat well. It'll keep your body at that energy that you need to demand what all the energy that you need from it. So you can get everything you want to get done. And so I'm often surprised by how much I can do if I just promise myself to do at least 15 minutes of work on my game every single day. That helps you, sometimes you won't be able to even touch it for a minute, a second. But the point is, you're always striving for just 15 minutes. Don't overwhelm yourself with, I have to put like 2 hours. If I could just get all of the player movement and add a dash. Whoa. Just give it a few minutes. See how much you get done. You'll surprise yourself like every time. It's very, you'll run into an issue and 15 minutes will be up and 14 minutes and 56 seconds were spent thinking a solution. That's okay. That's okay. Write down your thoughts and can leave it for another day. So it can be tough early on to make time for something that may frustrate you a ton, especially early on. And it's also not going to provide any money. So if you have, you're working, spending time with family, it's easy to feel like, man, I could be doing something more productive for my loved ones than just sitting here and trying to make a game nobody cares about. So it's okay to want to make money from games, I should first say. It's okay. You should always be trying to. It shouldn't be your single motivation for getting into this, but you shouldn't be ashamed for feeling that you would like to. for striving to, damn it. No, hell no. So you did, after all, put in that work, right? Work deserves compensation. It shouldn't be why you got into this, but it definitely shouldn't be something that you just go on without. So if you have that idea that you just can't get out of your head, it just won't be drowned out, you'll find yourself surely pushing through that frustration and putting aside the lack of profitability in pursuit of bringing that idea to life. So I was always so damn scared to take such risks, and I just stuck to work, school, family, social life, kick it time, you know, anything but a risk. Just kind of keep it safe. Even talking to a girl would, give me tremendous butterflies. So imagine something like trying to start a business or trying to learn a new skill. So I decided after about 30 years or so, I couldn't get the story ideas out of my head. I just couldn't. So I had to learn game development. And honestly, this is a major tip to the YouTube channel Video Game Storytime. They have literally, it was like a cold, cold bucket of water to the face. It just, all of their stories, I can't recommend that channel enough. I cannot recommend it enough. Like, my favorite channel on YouTube, bar none. And so all they do is tell stories of game developers, of, of game development cycles, games, additions to a game, and why it's in there. And I think it's fantastic. So what I learned is that game developers come from all sorts of walks of life. And the more diverse the industry is, the better it will be. So there's a place for you too. So for me, it wasn't enough just to write the story. I would look at the words and I didn't feel, I felt like all of my stories were better told as games than just read. So I wanted people to interact with the story in a way that only games could provide. It wasn't the possibility of making it a career or striking gold with one of my first games, and now they have interviews of me, I'm getting awards, and we all want that. As Clapton says about being the greatest guitarist ever, it's an ideal. You strive for it, of course, but it's just an ideal. So what got me into this and what keeps me, it's those loud screams in my head of those ideas that are just banging around day and night. Many of you have that same idea rattling in your noggin. Don't let the rattle go silent. Seek it and let it thrive. A creator is always tormented by that creative output, both the processes of generating ideas and developing those ideas. If we don't find a release for it, it can be miserable, man. You're a creator. Treat yourself like one. No one creates like you because there's only one you. It's corny, but damn it, it's true. So, while we're on the subject of time, there's rumblings out there that you can't be a real game developer if you only do this part time. Man, that's some bullshit, okay? You don't have to put yourself into any financial turmoil to be a real game developer or even to really give this an honest shot at making it a career. That point of view stands on the legs of defining what a successful game developer is. No one can define that for you. It's like defining success. We all have our own definition because of it. That answer says a lot more about what success is to you than what you think success is. So, you know, you while some are in this sure for a career, others are not. And so placing barriers on what is and is not a game developer just harms the community. That's all it does. It discourages and divides. We don't need that. We don't. So, as they say, that's for the birds. Leave it to them. Embrace your pace. The indie game development community is amazing, incredible. It's full of support, feedback, and others making games that you can see unfold, learn from yourself, and even be inspired by. So, the others making games part is One specific part that I'll be going into more detail shortly, the whole making games, right? So, money. The only things that you need money for to make games, assuming you already have a computer that meets your chosen game engine's minimum system requirements, is the following. This is all you'll need money for. Notice I didn't say making money from your games. That's another thing. So, onward we go. Number one, you'll have to pay a cut to itch.io, Steam, Google Play, Apple Store, or any other game marketplace. That only happens when there's a game sale. It's not like you're putting in money and then when it's sold, it'll be taken out of those funds you put. No. What's next? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The rest is 100% optional. And honestly, for your first game, you should aim to spend zero. That way, if your game even makes $1, it's a profit. Maybe not when you put your time, you add all that, but hey, we're not here counting time cards, are we? So, you want to get efficient with that later in your development. Right now, it's just about finishing it. You don't need a single dollar to get there. Okay? So, unless the game takes off, then maybe start putting some money into it and stuff like that. You'll know it'll pick up steam. The community will begin setting the entire internet world on fire for your game. So the next thing, relevant skills. So this was a huge one for me. Some people have no time, some people have no money. I had time enough. I am blessed with a very good job. So, I don't I'm not financially struggling to make these games. So it's not like if I put time into making a game, it's money I'm not earning out there working. So what it boiled down to for me was relevant skills. So you might feel that you don't have the necessary skills to even start game development, let alone continue it or get anywhere with it. You think you'll need to actually learn to draw really well, code these massive blocks of code straight from your head because you know all that, and or else the jig is up. Wrong. Okay, I am but one simple example here among probably thousands of us. Okay, I had none of what I cared to call relevant skills for game development. As if I knew enough about game development itself to make an informed opinion on having or not having the quote unquote relevant skills. I can't draw. I've tried and just never had any inclination for it. And I find it's because I'm not necessarily motivated to get better at that. Um, I can't code. It's simply because I just never put in the time. It's not because I'm unable to learn it. Um, Before even starting game development, I figured I needed to have at least college level math really well down, since that's what my local community college requires in order for you to take a C++ programming course. So, yeah, pretty poor thinking on my part, right? Just discouraging and discouraging. It really discouraged me for a long time. I've been amazed with the ability to tell a story in games since I was a kid. Doesn't matter. It never got to a point where I just said, screw it, I'm gonna try it. No, I just stayed discouraged, stayed in my lane, stayed doing other things, playing basketball, and just not games, right? Not trying to make games because I didn't think I had what it takes. So I didn't know a damn thing about pixel art. I knew what it was called. I didn't know anything else about that entire world. I didn't know anything about game engines, and I knew even less about the indie community. Okay? Still, what drove me to at least try was that I really did believe I really do believe that we all have something we can build on. We all have some kind of talent that's applicable to this. Doesn't seem like it, but we all do. So it was that belief, or maybe hope, um, that got me started into it. So what did I have? I had a computer that could run 100% game engines. Like, it was not a problem. I didn't have a great computer, but I could run Unity. I could use FL Studio for audio production enough to make some beats or like a simple podcast. I had embarrassingly wanted to be a famous blues writer and singer, and yeah, I love the blues, but yeah. So I know how to use FL Studio a bit, and I loved writing stories. And because I didn't think there was any future for them, I never really wrote these stories. I would develop them in my head, and every now and then I come back, think about them, and So in total, I felt I didn't have anything relevant to get started, but fuck it, I was gonna go for it anyways. So I couldn't have been more wrong though. So here's what you need to get into game dev. All you need is you, a computer, and an idea. Everything else comes. Everything will come to you in time. Everything. Everyone puts in different time to learn something. It's why you can, if you ever see students learning to play the guitar for the first time, some will advance faster than others. You can have two students who have never even seen a guitar, and they will not develop at the exact same pace, even if they get the exact same education. We all develop at a different pace. So put in the time that you need for your own skills to develop. Inevitably, you'll acquire them. It's inevitable. It really is. So do something every day for a few minutes and you'll see gains clear as day. So the reason I say 15 minutes a day, I actually got that from a YouTube channel where I learned a ton about just audio production in general. And that's The Recording Revolution by I believe his name is Graham. I think it's Cochran. But the channel is The Recording Revolution. And he had this awesome series that was called 5 Minutes to a Better Mix, and it literally changed my entire thinking about how you can get into an idea and carry it out and complete it. You don't need to, if you don't have a lot of time, just give it a few minutes. And 5 minutes to a better mix. Hey, I have 5 minutes, right? I could do that. So that's how I, started picking up some audio production tips. I still don't know a lot, as you can no doubt tell from the quality of this recording, but that really helped me know that just a few minutes a day into something, you do inevitably pick up skills. You do. You can't do something over and over and not get better at it. You just do. Repetition just does that. So the next thing. So now you don't need all this time. You don't need, money. You don't need any relevant skills to get started. Well, what about hardware and software? So many game engines are free, enough to where you have more than adequate resources in each one to make your game a reality. Unless you're, trying to push the edge on realistic graphics, that's a whole nother monster not discussed here. Um, in the beginning, you'll be honestly much more limited by your own capabilities than a game engine's capabilities. Specific expensive game assets like art, effects, music, code, etc. None of that will limit you more than your own skills, your own capabilities. This is awesome. So that's pretty cool because you'll more than likely be growing into wielding all of that power. And it's great. In the beginning, it's like you're lifting the sword and you're like puny, you can't even pick it up. But as you keep putting in the time, you start wielding it, and before you know it, you're out there like Dark Souls. You know what I'm saying? So many computers that are 6 to 7 years old can still be used for 2D game development. I'm using one right now. So I don't know how far you can go on 3D game development, but nevertheless, the system requirements for game engines are fairly flexible. Hell, you can still run Unity on Windows 7. Shoutouts to Amtrak, who is always making these amazing little restorations of old computers. Man, that is giving these old machines some new life. So, that old little machine of yours, it might be strong enough for what you're trying to do. Most of us have a computer accessible that can run Unity enough to, get started. And that's all you need to do. Just get started. The more games you complete, you can keep iterating from there. You can iterate on a game idea that you made really small, and you can iterate on it. And then, hey, I'm relaunching this with new maps, new characters, new this, new that, things that I couldn't add when I first started. It's a beautiful thing. So I run, in case you'd like to know, I run Unity on a laptop from 2013, 2014. A Toshiba satellite, Intel Pentium powered. I have no issues running Unity. I was waiting about like 45, 30, 45 seconds when I would hit play to be able to try the game out. But after putting in a solid state drive into it recently, cost me $68. It's been a non-issue. I'm waiting like 10 seconds or less now. So it's made my laptop a lot more capable of handling 2D game development. I didn't I only recently bought this less than a month ago. So for the first 10, 11 months of my game development, I didn't use it. I honestly was more limited by what I could do than waiting 45 seconds to try to test the game. That's the least of my problems at that point. So this is the end of part one. So the second part is going to be recorded and released a few days into April. And so back to the three truths from earlier. Why did I share that with you? I shared them not to toot my own horn. I'm a game developer, bitches. No. I did it so that I can always come back to those three things. They will always be true. Okay? Who, what, why. Okay? So, imposter syndrome is a bitch. Okay? Even the greats deal with it. So, if we're going to wrestle with this monster, we got to strengthen our minds for that battle because it's unforgivable. So, if you make games, you are a game developer. Yes, even you who can't get the most basic tutorial to work in day one, literally like the first few hours. Yes, even you. I started there. Everyone started there. And some days I'm right back there. It's part of the journey. It's okay. So you are a game developer. Who are you? You are a game developer. Now, while I haven't completed my first game, I could have completed a few games by now. Learning to reduce scope has been literally the second biggest obstacle I've dealt with. The first being not feeling qualified enough to start all this. So don't lose time like I did simply because A, a tiny game can be fun and can get players to want more of it. As the saying goes, always leave them wanting more. And B, you gotta jump in to swim, man. C, qualifications. Dude, this isn't a job, it's fun. Okay? So complete your first game ASAP. Faster development is the way to go. Okay? And why are you doing this? Right? So the first one is, you know, who are you, game developer? What have you done for me lately? Game dev asking you. So always reduce scope. Don't just stay caught up on that one project. No, reduce the scope. What have you done lately? Always stay moving forward. Okay? Why are you doing this? That's the last one. Why are you doing this? So I took a break from game development to take notes on YouTube tutorials for like 2, 3 months. I was honestly very frustrated with my game development a few months ago, and I concluded that it was my lack of skill development. And instead of trying to learn and make a game just frustratingly through it, I just decided to learn by working through tutorial examples. I printed code from tutorials. I made handwritten notes on it to explain what parts of the code did, even in more detail than the tutorial went into, because I needed that. I needed that understanding at a more fundamental, almost primal level. I needed to get my head wrapped around it to really understand programming. I knew that it would be essential to things I would want to do later. So I saw YouTube tutorials on C sharp programming, and often on repeat over and over. I would experiment in Unity to see what I could do with what I had learned. And then, about 2 weeks before Christmas, I felt the itch to create, but and not doing so began to rob my energy. But I didn't want to just jump into game dev, and I liked how I was learning through just tutorials and not trying to just build a game, just kind of refining certain skills to get back into it, get a deeper understanding of the basics. So I decided to write a story. I wrote a Christmas story, released it in parts on Twitter, and the feedback I got broke through all my doubts. It opened the valve of my creativity. Okay? Had me feeling like I was rising from the ashes. I'm being pretty over the top here, but it was a huge turning point for me. By January, I could already feel the tide turning in my favor. I felt more confident reading code from all sorts of tutorials. I noticed I was able to complete tutorials and reuse the techniques I had learned in ways I could only hope for just 2 months prior. The harsh realization that my fundamental understanding of C Sharp and Unity was not good enough to follow along seemingly simple tutorials lit a fire under me. So I couldn't quit doing game dev. I still hadn't even told one story. I was down, but I was not down for the count, damn it. You may have a similar moment where you just get knocked down to the floor like a sack of potatoes in a flurry of programming errors and odd bugs that render your game unplayable. Sometimes the only thing you'll be able to pick yourself up with will be that reason why you got into this. So don't trip. Take a deep breath. Don't be afraid to admit that you got to work on your chops and understand at your core that anything can be learned. Anything. Tangent alert. Right before we finish this, I love the movie The Internship. There's a specific scene in there. It's called the teaching a kid one letter scene. It's if any of you have seen it out there, you'll already know instantly. But if not, Vince Vaughn is watch it. First of all, watch it. I really, really think you should watch it. When I'm in my game dev juices, it's something I'll come back and think about. Really cool. So in the scene, Vince Vaughn is frustrating trying to learn how to provide basic Gmail technical support. It's part of the competition that they're in, right? So he's about ready to just give up, and he's not that guy. He's not the person that gives up. He's always that guy who gives you the pep talk and tries to, add some, gust in your sails. So he's feeling down. He just wants to just give up, just leave. He's not any kind of positive contribution to the team, and it just kills him. So he's about ready to just give up, and he's interrupted by some dude behind him, okay? The guy tells Vince Vaughn words that rang deep as fuck in my head. This can be learned. And so he tells him, Vince Vaughn goes, man, this is like teaching a kid the alphabet. And the guy responds, no. It's like teaching a child a single letter. And he tells him that the way his team members look at him, he has a way with people. And that is very unique, very special. That is his gift. This Gmail technical support, it can be learned. He can learn this. But you can't learn the people skills that Vince Vaughn already has. That brings him right back into it and lets him know, hey, listen, I have skills that I can contribute to this team. I'm lacking here, and that's okay. I can work on this. So, who, what, why? Okay, who are you? What have you done for me lately? That's game dev asking you your game project. And C, why are you doing this? Keep those three in mind. Okay, the next episode of this will be up, as I said, in the first few days of April. The idea here is to just kind of share my rookie year in game dev, and if there's anything you can take from it, basics. Choose a game engine that you feel most comfortable with. Pick one and go. Keep the scope as small as possible. Your ideas deserve to be out there. Don't get caught up in constant iteration and prevent that. Let them see the light. Let them be out there, for better or worse. Okay? It's for better or worse. Don't get caught up on not having time, money, relevant skills, the right gear. You need a lot less than you think. Okay? So that's it. This has been Miguel. You can follow me on Twitter at Tertiary Map. I'm gonna put that in the in the video here. It'll be much easier than spelling it out. And thank you for listening. The next episode of Mud on a Monday will be out shortly. I might even record it right after this one. Then that will be a return to the Mud on a Monday format. We'll be looking at a specific individual and picking up some things that we can learn and take into the game dev journey. So thank you for listening. Have a wonderful one. Stay safe out there. Practice legit social distancing, and we're going to get through this coronavirus together. All right? Have a wonderful one. Again, thank you for listening. This has been Miguel.